Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about Canon EOS C80. So let's dive deep into it. So C80 is basically C series as in cinema lineup. Canon's a dedicated video camera. Now this puppy is full frame 6K sensor around 26 megapixel and if it looks like a weird DSLR, it's the thing in this way. The lower end of C series is designed as a what if you took an interchangeable lens camera like a DSLR or mirrorless and you gave the engineer freedom. It's like go YOLO on it. You need bigger battery, put a bigger battery. You need more ports, put more ports. You need more tripod mounts, put as many as you need. So what will happen? The outcome is this camera. That's why it looks like an overgrown DSLR, because that's what it is inherently. Inherently, it's just like engineer took the base of it and then they kept adding things to it to make it reliable as a video camera. And this puppy lines up precisely in between of C70 and C400. So C400 is full frame, but it can do a bit more oomph. The hardware is exactly the same as in like the sensor and analog to digital converter. It's just that it has more oomph, so it can do higher formats and all that. C70, it actually even has some more advantage compared to this puppy, but it has APS-C sensor. So, and what about the technology, color quality and all that? Here's the deal. In this sort of price range and this sort of equipment, it does not really matter. The only thing it will matter is like, hey, if your camera is this, you have to buy Canon as camera B, because again, you can cross match from Sony to Canon or whatever have you. It's very difficult. So this sort of price scale is just like, hey, buy it. Does it fit your need or not? It's like, that's it. Like optical quality, the codecs and all that, this level is like, bro, don't worry about it. And be mindful what this does. Few years ago, this is literally what went into Hollywood. So I'm not just exaggerating, this is literally high end. And in terms of the sensor, it has backside illuminated sensor while having triple base ISO. You have to understand there is only generally one ISO whenever you take a photograph, and the ISO setting that you see is basically sensor, digital to analog converter, analog to digital converter, and then you have a gain setting. So that ISO number that you see is basically gain. That's why your raw file can still show details, because it's almost increasing ISO on the raw file. So you have the gain. But here's the problem with that is generally we only have one precise level, whereas like perfectly above, perfectly below. So like 7 stops above, 7 stops below, perfectly balanced. Your shadow does not become blackened and your white highlights do not become completely blown out. That's perfect. Colors are perfectly rendered. Base ISO. Yeah, it's only suited for one thing. Like you have to engineer it. So engineers came up with the idea, what if we push these things rather than being in the bottom, as middle as possible, we push it. Like one only designed for low light scenario. So do your best in low light. Another, do your best in highlights. So in those sort of scenario, now you have two ISO circuits, which we call dual gain circuits. This puppy has triple. So meaning you can choose from very bright light, low light, ultra low light. So your image will still look good even in very low light, because again, they have that. Now, will it be day and night difference? No, but it's a bit of enhancement. And be mindful at this scale, like you literally have to project it into a cinema theater. It's like, I can see ISO to be a bit more noisy and grained, and this scale people are talking about feels. The cost is $5,500. In India, it should be around 5 lakh rupees. Eesh, expensive. And that's also maybe, I'm pretty sure it is gonna cross that. So this is C80 that we are talking about here. So what things does it have that makes it quote unquote pro? The first ease of use feature it has an inbuilt ND filter. ND filter is one of those things that you, as a photographer, you never understand why the heck people need it, but at the moment you go into video, you realize that you do not have as much control as you wished. For example, if you paid for shallow depth of field in your movies, you need shallow depth of field. Yeah, so if you are in broad sunlight, you still need to shoot in f2.8. What the hell are you gonna do then? You're gonna be like, okay, what if I decrease the shutter speed? Here's the problem. That will mess up your motion blur. You cannot do that. So then what do you do? ISO, again, there is only 3 IO options, and generally because of the settings, you will be locked to one. What the hell you do then? You put ND. That's why in all cinema, you generally have a cinema camera, and then you have a lens, and then you have a matte box. In that matte box, they plant the ND. Specifically fine-tuned for what, and sometimes they have gradation ND filter, meaning the ND that has only half of the screen tinted. The reason for that is, like, if you are shooting something against bright sky, the bright sky can be tamed down. So ND is a very compulsory requirement, especially if you do a lot of daytime shooting in broad sunlight. So but you need a lot of options, right? You may need 2 stops, 4 stops, 6 stops, 8 stops, 10 stops. These are like all those things inside. Benefit is Any lens you attach, you have the ND. That's a really easy to use feature set. So it's a good add-on. Now, on top of that, the biggest problem right now with your DSLR and your mirrorless camera is that they have the horsepower, and many of them have the raw files and all that. So they can actually be a tangible, high quality cinema equipment. The only point where they all fall apart, especially if you want to do any sort of long duration, yeah, they will overheat. They are not designed properly to handle that sort of load for long duration. They can handle it for a few minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. The moment you start to push, like let's say a red letter media, they generally have a shoot scenes that go on for 3 hours. Yeah, the moment you try to do that, yeah, most cameras will just like poof, even if you are in an air conditioned room, simply because they do not have the ecosystem where they can dump enough of heat in the ambient to stay cool. And they are still in 1980s technology. Most of them don't even have vapor chamber or heat pipes or anything like that. So that heat slowly cooks them. These things, they are designed for it. So from day one, they have a air vent and fans and cooling structure. Everything in this is designed that it can run 5 to 6 hours. It can run for very long. In this scenario, you can even bypass the battery and have a like 24-volt DC input and go YOLO on it. And that's the whole intent of these. These things are designed as a heavy use device. So it can endure the long run time. It also has 12G SDI. SDI is basically upgraded version of the cable we used to have, coax cable that used to bring dish TV to our homes. And again, if you have dish TV, that's the same coax cable. So same cable carrying the protocol of SDI, and version of SDI 12G allows you to have one cable that can carry a very high bandwidth signal, very long distance. So HDMI is not designed for long distance. It's designed from your computer to your monitor, your Blu-ray player to your TV. It's not designed for like 20 feet or 50 feet or 100 feet. SDI is designed for that. So if you are running a, let's say, cricket stadium, what can go that distance? SDI. If you have a long cinema setup where you have a crane and you want to have the camera and have that footage from the camera going into a video villa that could be 100 meters apart, yeah, SDI is like, I got this. So SDI is desired. People wanted this puppy in C70, so they are like, okay, in C80 we're gonna give you that. And it also has HDMI simultaneous output. Now, back in the old days, if you had old Blackmagic camera, they had all the features, but problem was like, oh, it can only do in one or the other. Although recent systems have solved this issue, this has solved that issue. And it has dual SD card, because again, it's a professional equipment. You cannot trust one card with this. It has dual redundant recording in all formats. So UHS 2. Now be mindful, if you want to do raw recording, you must buy V90 cards. Anything lower, it will not work. You must buy V90. And it also has lots of ports. For example, timecode port. So timecode is one of those things, if you are willing enough, you can force timecode into any system. Heck, I can put timecode in my ancient Canon 800D simply because I can have a timecode screamer that screams into audio channel and put it into audio. But it requires conversion. The software will not read it. Adobe Premiere will not read it. Even DaVinci will not read it. You have to convert it, that audio channel, into timecode. But that's not how professionals do it. Professionals generally have a professional data channel just for that. This has that. You plug it in, it's like, okay, the audio data is not tampered with. So you can have full 4-channel audio and timecode. So it has that professional setup for that timecode. It has XLR mic input if you need that. Again, it's a far more focused on the run and gun scenario. In most time, you may not need this. And it has LAN. Again, add on, but if you need it, again, streaming is becoming a big enough deal where, again, streaming do go on for a very long time. So people may be like, hey, I want something more oomph, because you can do streaming with your, like, Sony cameras and Nikon cameras and Canon cameras. Most of them overheat by the 1 hour 30 minute mark. Most of them, even in a cold room, they're not designed to dissipate heat properly. These things are like, yeah, I can run all day. So it can do that. And in terms of RAW, you can get 12-bit Canon RAW, that is 30 frame per second full frame. If you want to go higher temporal resolution, as in 60 hertz, you have to shrink it to micro four third, not micro four, sorry, APS-C. The reason for that is the card slot. Is the SoC is powerful enough, it's just the card slot is not fast enough. And it has a lot of compressed format also, where you can go 4:2 all I, as in all frames are there, and 10-bit depth. Meaning for 99% of scenario, this is more than good enough. But if you really need to go extra, you have RAW option. So it's a really competent system. And again, battery is also big and high power, and you also have the luxury of pressing the button and seeing how much capacity you have left. So these things what make a bigger battery, a cooling system that actually allows it to run, ND system, which is kind of compulsory for videographers, all these things, and having audio injection directly, analog audio input injections, all these things make this sort of puppy far more robust. Rather than making a jig where you are adding things, it's like just this. So these things what make it pro. Are there any limitation on this puppy? Yes. Using SD card for video, it's no longer viable anymore, and I have no idea why the heck they are doing it. Again, I get it, cost cutting, but it's like, why? Go to Compact Flash Association, ask them for CFast Type B. So that's just silly. And be mindful, C400 has that. So here it was like, it just feels wrong. Like again, for video, we have learned it the hard way that SD card is not fast enough. Even UHS 2 V90 cards are not fast enough. So that having that is like, Now here's the, all that is like minor inconvenience. However, the major inconvenience is that it does not have gen lock, which is very weird, and it's limiting for VFX. Like for example, if you see that LED wall setup, how do you think the camera and game engine are working together? Because there is a gen lock protocol. Gen lock is a upgraded version of timecode. Timecode is just a metadata. It screams. It's almost like 1101, 1102. 1103. It's just a time that is screaming. It's going into all the devices that are linked. A problem with that is not overriding the inbuilt clocks, inbuilt oscillator, so to say. So for example, if you record something for let's say 4 hours, you will find very surprisingly, unless you have audio directly going into the recorder itself, and if you have like audio recorder independent, camera recorder, both are time linked using time code, yeah, both of them will drift. The moment you stretch the duration like 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, you'll find, hey, almost like 15-20 minutes would be missing in one of them. Why? Oscillator drifted. Generally, camera oscillators are not very good. Audio, because again, audio people are very sensitive to this, so they are very thorough with that. So you even a basic end kind of audio equipment generally oven crystal oscillator, temperature compensated ovenized oscillator for that reason, so they do not drift, but camera drifts. So how do professionals deal with it? Specifically broadcast people, they're like, what if we eat all of it? Okay, so your camera does have an oscillator. They're like, what if we do not listen to it? You listen to a signal that is coming from outside, or gen lock. Gen lock is like, every puppy listen to this one daddy, the end. Like if daddy drifts, everything else drifts. If it speeds up, everything speeds up. If it slows down, everything, it remains in sync. That's how you can have all the 24-hour news channel network working while they are switching from camera A to camera B to studio A to studio B. How can they do it? Gen lock. Gen lock is one of those things that is kind of compulsory for serious work. Not having that here on a video camera that is ludicrously expensive, that's like, no. Again, you can't even do like, VR setup, because again, even if you can have the optics aligned and all that, which again, they did that for Avatar, we're having a beam splitter, and then you have one camera here, another camera here. Okay, boom, VR, perfect. Nah. That assumes you can trigger camera simultaneously. You cannot do that with timecode. Timecode is a metadata layer. The camera will drift, and you need everything to be perfectly synced. You need gen lock. So not having that on a cinema camera is like, no. And lack of 32-bit audio, which bothers me, because like that's the biggest change that happened in from 2000. Like that's the biggest whoa. Like imagine it this way, like how it felt going from like SD video to HD video. That's like whoa. HD to 4K is not that whoa, but like SD to HD was like whoa. So same thing happened with audio. Audio went from SD to HDR, which is 32-bit float. You can have 2 analog to digital converters, and they are taking hot signal and cold signal and properly mapping that to one audio channel, and then you can scale whatever you need to in post-production. While you have digital file, you can scale up, scale down, no noise, no issue. Perfect setup. Finally we had this technology, and none of the camera companies are giving that by default. Panasonic did came too close to it, but again, I did not like the Panasonic's approach, where it's like we have this dedicated hardware which takes mic input directly. But here's the, no matter how good their analog to digital converter is, it will be chump change compared to Tascam, Zoom, Mixpre, Scorpio, on all the other DAT pro level brands. So why not just accept the signal? Now, like, is there a protocol for transferring 32-bit float? Yes, it's called USB-C. So that does bother me. It's like 2024, come on. We should not need that. And again, especially if you do not have gen lock, and people did that long recording on this, they will find it very painful to manage that. So it's one of those things where it's like, eesh. 32-bit, and again, it's a digital signal. You can easily port it from one to another without any corruption, any sort of hiss or anything. It's digital. It's the analog signal that requires like a lot of amplification and all that. So once you have digital, you do not have to worry about it. We do not have that. And again, even though they upgraded the hot hot shoe, and that's why I'm frustrated. It's like Panasonic also did that. They upgraded the hot shoe and they're like, hey, now we add 32-bit. So Panasonic is almost there where we will have a 32-bit injection into it, float injection into it. That's the end game. USB-C 32-bit float injection input. That will remove all the problem of like syncing audio. We will never need to worry about it. We are this close, this close. So not having that. Now they have, I'm not joking, they are very proud about this. Now they have a finally new naming convention. That's why I said like camera companies never crossed 1980s. It's like the naming convention right now, MVI_001 .mp4. Now, if you are familiar with microcontrollers, you know this sort of thing generally shows that there is a limit. Yeah, that limit was there in 1990s microcontrollers, not in today's SoC. So they can have much better, but they're like, who cares? Who updates it? Now they are updating, and this is a big point. Now you can have camera index, reel number, clip number, main codex identifier, recorded date, special record identifier, record time, random ID, user definition code. Now here's the deal. Does that matter in production? Yes, this is shut up, take money, kind of important. Like who does this right now? Because a modern camera does not do that. The data wrangler, it becomes his job. He takes the card, plays the card a little bit, sees that slate, he copies down all the information into the metadata layer of the video file. Having that directly into this is shut up, take money. Because no matter who is doing this, they are human. They will make mistake. Generally, you want to automate this sort of thing. How can you automate it? Have the camera directly. Camera A is camera A. Camera A. Camera B is camera B. You will never mix up their data files. It will say camera A, camera B. Date and time, they will never mix it up. So it really bothers me. And again, you can even have camera person, like if you know this camera is like this guy's file, you can have that person name here, whatever have you. Like this is a good thing. It's just tragic that you have to get into $5,000 equipment to like, oh, I can rename the file like it's 1999. So that does bother me, but like I'm happy that they have progressed it. And still no USB-C recording. This is the biggest weak link right now. While CFast Type B is fast enough, it's still nowhere close to these puppies. These puppy cheapest one can give you 5 GPS, which again, good luck how the heck you are finding them. Nowadays, most of them are 10 GPS, meaning they can give you 1 gigabyte. Let that be 1 gigabyte. Read and write easily. And it's not even expensive. It's not even a higher energy draw. This do not draw that much power because its size is its advantage. So having USB-C directly going into NVMe SSDs is priceless. Now, cheap companies generally do that, like Blackmagic and Panasonic. The reason why I'm calling them cheap is they are not flagship series. But Nikon, because again, they were not doing very hot in the video market, they did start to do it. So I was very hopeful that finally Canon would do it, because only then I can see Sony doing it. And the reason why Sony would be the last is because they do make their own SD card. If they allow people to have this sort of actually useful, cheap, cost-effective option, why would people buy that random, abomination known as CFast Type A? They made CFast Type B XQD card, that is Sony proprietary, that is pin compatible with CFast Type B. They are same thing. Like literally CFast Association and Sony got into the bed. They made that CFast Express Association, that whole new lineup. It's made by Sony and CFast. And Sony is not using it. It's like, use this, okay? Throw away all your BS, USB output, done. Nobody has to worry about it. Like Blackmagic figured it out, Panasonic figured it out, and Nikon also figured it out. A Z7 Mark III have figured it out. So that's the only way where someone who does not have too much money can actually get into this and truly deal with high bitrate files. Now, all this means one very good thing. Competition. The market is heating up. I have noticing that in last 5 years, the video tool markets are going up. Like earlier days, we were like, who cares about video? It's like a hybrid camera, everything. Now everything is focusing on video. Heck, Sony just released their Handycam series, and everybody is releasing proper dedicated video camera. It's like, why? Well, 3 pillars: YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And you're like, who does that? Yes, everybody does that. Many people, like I'm not even joking, there are companies who like specialize in that, like where company as in like for influencer, they're like, okay, we'll set up your ecosystem. It looks like you're recording on mobile. It's not. I'm like, I did not care, did not give a damn that it was so important for many influencers where they're like, they have a whole setup, but they have to make it feel like that it's done on mobile phone. So there's an increased amount of demand, like bonkersly large amount of demands are happening. and Red reduced their camera price. I mean, like, what the hell? That happened? Like Red, and again, this camera also is reaching a point of the same as this, so you can get in the. Now, be mindful, this is smaller sensor, but it has global shutter and gen lock. So you can get into this. So basically, Komodo X and Komodo, I have a serious price cut, like 30-40% kind of price cut. So they are doing it now. Sony FX lineup is also the same thing. They took normal hybrid camera or A series camera, and they're like, what we have to do to it in order to make it a video camera? Nothing. Add a cooling fan. Ta-da! FX series. Panasonic's like, what if we make a perfect hybrid? How would you do that? Cooling fan. That's all there is to a video camera nowadays. Let that be very clear. Like, the output of these camera, and even these cameras that we have, take it for granted, it's literally same level as few years ago we had in theaters. Like few years ago, not decades ago, few years ago. We are a bit too spoiled now. You're like, okay, what if we had this and that? And it's like, no, we are spoiled. The only weak link right now is the cost of the media, which again, we have the solution, and the cooling. And cooling requires fan or somebody to, like in case of Red cameras, they actually have Peltier module. In case of RE, there is a giant Peltier module that is like, okay, I'm going to cool everything down. So yeah, you do need cooling. So that's the only big difference nowadays I can tell you from a photo camera to a video camera. But more competition equals better for us. The more price competitive things will become, because be mindful, I'm reasonably sure if the market was not so overheated, this puppy would have launched for $10,000. Look into the price of C300 when it was launched and all that. So then you will be like, good progress. So this was my presentation on a C80. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst a friend. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.